All right, hello everyone. This is Group 5, discussion number 4. Today we are talking about ethics. So as a group, we're going to go ahead and define ethics and then explore how ethics shapes leadership and how ethical behavior is reflected in public leadership. So what did you guys think of, what do you define ethics?
I think when I think of ethics, I think it really intertwined with morals. Just prior to reading the textbook and stuff, that's just how I always thought of ethic. What was ethically correct, what is morally correct. I know it's a little different than that, but that was always in my mindset when I thought of the word ethics.
Agree. I'll say, as I was reading through the textbook, and going over the different thoughts of ethics that they had, I could see the value in each one.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting as we were reading through, and they had the arguments for each type of ethics as well. So the Kantian ethics, how they were saying you just do what's right no matter what. But they're so do you not steal to save a starving child? And
that was really interesting. That was
interesting. I guess the one that I find the most intriguing is the Justice as Fairness by Rawls, where he's talking about how we'll make the right choice if we look at things through a veil of ignorance. Which it is just really interesting to me, the example that they used about casting the orchestra, and how when they listened to people, the conductor listened to people from where they couldn't see them, how they ended up selecting more women than they used to. And I just think it's really, interesting how even subconsciously we allow our biases to influence our opinions of people.
Yes. It is very much so.
Okay. But at the same point, it's, a little challenging to put into practice. We all want to say that we judge everyone by just their character, and that is all. But a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
I really connected to that theory as well, or that theory of ethics. What it kind of reminded me of is there is, in the parenting world and where I live, there is a private school, or a private Montessori school.
Mm-hmm.
It's super popular. There's a wait list to get in there. And what I found out, which I thought was interesting, that all the members that are part of the board or the chair board, or I don't know what they, that kind of creates new rules for the school and initiatives, they have to be members that don't have kids currently enrolled in the school. So they can't have any investment or personal ties that could give them bias into making a rule pass or favoring a teacher or things like that. And I thought that was pretty interesting of a concept to do. So that's what kind of stuck out to me of an example of that and how it kind of worked in that aspect. And I thought of an HOA, imagine being a part of an HOA that the members on the board weren't part of the community, how maybe that would actually solve a couple of problems. Does that make sense? I know there's also bad points, but I was just man, that might squash easy problems that people bicker about because they get so personally invested into it.
I think it's a good point. When you you can't help but be a little bit selfish. So, using your example with the HOA, of course you want, it's your house, your neighborhood. So you want what you think is right to go through, and you don't really consider what's right for everyone else in your environment. So really, by not having any investment, you could make the more ethical choice.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, there's definitely downfalls to that side in terms of that person doesn't have a a passion for what they're fighting for, or that maybe some of the like if we look at government, some of the legislation, and so you kind of lose out on that aspect because maybe that passion is what helps fight the good cause, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like out of those different theories, what would you guys say that you identified with the most when it comes to ethics?
I think it was the one we just referred to, the ethic is justice, or justice is ethics, or something like that one.
Justice as fairness.
Yes, that one.
Yep. I had to reread everything because I keep confusing them. Besides the utilitarianism, that one I'm like solid in. But between Kant's categorical and justice and fairness, I keep mixing them up. Sorry, go on.
I also like the altruistic idea where you're really, or it kind of moved into like servant leadership at the end, but where you're there to serve others, and that's where the ethics kind of comes from, I think. Was that, or yeah. And it just reminded me of Divergent. If anyone's ever read Divergent. No, or seen the movies?
Yeah, I've seen the movie.
Okay.
I haven't read it.
Yeah, where like her, factor or whatever, was, I think, I forget the name of it, but that was like their premise, was like, they were there to serve others and not to be selfish. So it was just something I connected with as well. But
yeah, I agree. Altruism was the one that I felt like I identified with the most. I thought that it was like not so absolute as like the Kantian utilitarian and justice as fairness. But at the same point, like it was kind of just about like do what feels right, and like have a concern for others. Because I agree, like it can be challenging to make the ethical choice when you're concerned most about like what's right for you. And so that's what I enjoyed about the altruism.
Does anyone have like really good examples of like ethical dilemmas you've experienced in the workplace?
Oh,
like as a leader.
I definitely have one that I thought of.
Okay.
It was a lot of times when I have to hold my employees accountable for things, for breaking rules. That information goes into like their personnel file, where they might have a medical condition that's causing them to miss work a lot. But I can't divulge that information to the rest of the staff. So the staff just kind of looks at me like, hey, what are you doing? Why is this person still here? And it's like, I want to tell them some of the background, but it's not my place to tell them some of the background because that's violating their like personal information and privacy. So that's just something like small that I kind of come up against, is I feel like I have to explain myself because I want to give them the reasons why. You know what I mean? As a leader, I give them the reasons of why we're making these rules, why I'm doing it this way. This is why we're doing it. But I can't do it in this situation because that's an invasion of their privacy. And I know as a leader, I can't, that's not a cool thing.
Like I would agree that I have like similar situations where, like partners, they don't necessarily understand like why someone's acting a certain way. Maybe you have like, they've told you about like things that are going on in their life. And, it's like you just have to manage the behaviors themselves and like really try to, like I understand what she's saying. It can be challenging to keep things confidential when you know that like it could possibly like help that other person see. But like typically what I've done in that situation, like I just recently had something and it was actually a medical condition, like Erin was mentioning. And like I just pulled that partner aside that was having some issues with a different supervisor. And I was like, if you feel comfortable, like you might want to tell them a little bit about what's going on in your life, because it might help them understand a little bit more about where you're coming from. But, at the same point, it's not my place to say, and you don't have to. So.
I think that's, I'm sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's one thing that scares me the most about like being in like a managerial like type of position is like ethical dilemmas. It can be tough sometimes.
And I think, and I know Amanda, I'm sure you've seen this happen or, know this happening. But skewing the methods in which we get results in order to get better results. For instance, like our customer surveys that we pass out. We used to pass them out back in the day, like individual people, with the receipts.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would always like pass them off to your regulars and not to necessarily do it at random. You would kind of like game the system. But that definitely was not an ethical practice. It wasn't really getting the right information back to the company so they can make any decisions or changes that they need to make. We would skew that base so we can get the higher scores as a store and not have to worry about it. But if you used the altruistic, I think it was. No, it starts with a U. Sorry, I don't have the textbook in front of me.
Oh, it's okay.
What is it? Utilitarian?
Utilitarian?
Yes, where if you imagined everybody doing the same thing, like what would that mean? I believe that was the kind of the context or the text, where it's like if one person did it, just imagine if everyone did it and if that would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's like you do it no matter what. And if everybody in the company skewed their results, then you know what I mean? We wouldn't have a great company to be successful in the future because it would be false information would be funneling up.
I agree with that. And I think, I'm sure that you've noticed, like, if you know that like senior leadership is coming to your store and your DM like calls you and they're like, check this and this and this and this and make sure this is perfect, like staff an extra person. And like, they just want it to look perfect. But at the end of the day, it's like, when people come in, they should see the reality of the situation. We want to do our best and we should do our best every day. But if we're not able to achieve a certain result and it's because we don't have the resources to do so, like we should be honest and not put on a show when people come to see, because otherwise they don't know what's happening in the stores because all they see is the perfect situation that everyone puts on for them. So, I agree that there's a lot of different ways that you can be unethical. And it's really just so that, you can make yourself look the best that you can, but it's not the right thing to do for the business. Yeah. So, all right. So how do you think that ethics shapes leadership?
Well,
say that again. Sorry, the mic cut out.
How does ethics shape leadership?
Once, if you guys recall this experience I had of like a negative leader, remember at the sandwich shop? Do you recall that story?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was very unethical, and like her lack of ethics definitely shaped the whole like work culture. Also, I would say. So I do think ethics and leadership, of course, go hand in hand together. And it plays a massive role in leadership and just overall like work culture and how employees act and so forth.
I definitely agree. And kind of like what I was thinking is that when you have a leader that is ethical, they typically do have more of like a leader as servants mentality. And I think it kind of helps them have like almost a more like transformational leadership style because they are more empowering and, they're focused on group success.
Yeah. I agree. Definitely.
I also think it creates a really trusting environment. Like I always like to be in a place where like I feel like I can share my feedback with my leader and that I'm not going to like face any negative consequences for telling them how I really feel.
Yeah.
And I think an ethical leader, they allow you to do that.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree on that.
Well, I think the last piece of the prompt is to explore how ethical behavior is reflected in public leadership. Really, like that just made me think of like things that you see in the news, like public leadership, like politicians, like CEOs, that kind of stuff. Like, what did you guys think of when you were thinking about that?
I definitely thought of government. I mean, being in a DC suburb, that's what I live and breathe, I feel, on my daily news. So there is no local news. It's always national news. and I think there is a big disjoint, or there's been a big gap that's growing between ethics and public leaders, in my opinion. I think there's few and far between. Um, I think I highlighted in the book, but there was a section where they actually like specifically talk about lobbyists like paying legislatures more so they can get favorable legislation passed and things like that. And so that really makes me distrust my leaders, or you know what I mean, some of the systems that are in place. Yeah, and even still, like, there's politicians, I think, on both sides, you know what I mean, red or white, that practice unethical things. And so it's not just it's not a political thing, it's a leader thing, or you know what I mean, it's bigger than just one party versus another. I think it's systemic almost on how we do business now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Oh no, I was agreeing. Sorry.
I was as well. I was going to say, like, it seems like that kind of behavior is really normalized, and that, like, it's almost expected if you're going to be successful as a politician, like, you have to engage in that kind of conduct. So, like, I don't know how you go about changing that. But I also kind of hope that we see the negative things in the news, like the news, you know, they love to report all the negative things, and maybe there is a lot of good out there and we just don't hear about it. Would be my hope.
I agree. I think there's a lot of good that just doesn't sell, so it's not reported, unfortunately. When I heard of public and ethics, I know they are referring to like public figures, but I just thought like of a story that just happened to me recently, which I don't know, floor level, here with a whole group of people, and they're like someone was leading, like a manager, and we were buying trolley tickets, and someone in the group didn't want to buy a trolley ticket, even if it was a couple dollars, but they didn't want to buy it. But when they saw the leader of the group buy it, they ended up buying it. And I just think that just little things like that, just because I felt guilty. I'm like, why'd you buy it now? Like, well, it's a right thing to do, and I think it just on every level, ethics does play a role, and even as a little group here that can like play a role when like decisions and morals and ethics.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of how, you know, like, just you leading by example and a leadership position kind of inspire others.
Definitely.
Well, we are just about out of time. Did you guys have any other final thoughts before we disconnect?
One thing that I thought was very interesting, growing up within Starbucks in terms of like leading and managing, something that was taught or funneled down to me early in my career with servant leadership. So that was just something that was kind of been in my culture. But reading the chapter, I didn't know that there were servant followers. And I was like, I had like a weird, like, little light bulb moment of maybe I'm a servant follower versus a servant leader. And it's just been something I've been chewing on. And I think servant followers can make good servant leaders, or can make good leaders. And that's probably why maybe I'm in the position that I'm in. But the older I get and the more I'm in my position, it's just not fulfilling everything that I want to have fulfilled. And I'm wondering if that's why. And I was like, I wonder if that's because I'm in a leadership role and maybe I should be in a follower role. I don't know. Or I've been leading for so long, I'm kind of ready to follow. I don't know.
Interesting.
But it was just something that kind of hit personal, off topic, kind of on topic.
Well, I think it's always good to remember that you're still a follower, even in your current role. You still have to follow the company directive and your leader. But I see what you're saying.
But it was just interesting because I didn't know there was a servant follower, and I was just like, I feel like that was why I became a leader, is because I was a good servant follower, and it was just kind of nice to remember that, or just nice to kind of see that. But anyway.
All right. Well, we are out of time. So we'll go ahead and end our broadcast.
All right.
I'll see you guys next week.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
Are
Bye.
you going to turn in? I forgot that.